just like when I interviewed Matthias, I did not know exactly how to say his name, so I'm going to ask you the same question because I don't want to mispronounce your name.
It's Uwe
Uwe.
Boll. Uwe Boll, yeah.
Okay, Uwe.
Not Yui, not Yui. A lot of people say Yui always.
I've heard so many different pronunciations of your name, and I never knew exactly what it was. Uwe. Okay, great. So we were introduced by I guess a mutual friend, because I had just watched House of the Dead for the first time, and
I know,
a lot of people.
I saw the video.
Man, I got to tell you, we had an absolute blast watching that movie. It is absolutely crazy, but that's kind of what I like to watch. So I had a good time with it, and I was kind of curious. How did you get that? That had a pretty big budget, right?
That was around 9 million at that time. So, and it's, I mean, in comparison to a lot of films, it's not a really big budget. But for this kind of horror zombie films, I think it was fair and good budget. But it was a situation where I got approached from the guys. They had the rights, they had Sega in the boat, they had the script written. So it was basically a project that was ready to go. And at that time, I was lucky to raise money. And my film from before, Heart of America, about school violence, didn't make any money, but it's a good film. So it was time to do something completely different, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they approached you just out of the blue?
Yeah, no, I think it was over a contact in Los Angeles. The company was Mindfire with Mark Altman. I don't know if I had something to do with them before already, but I know them. And they couldn't get the funding, but they had the rights and they had the script. And I read it. I'm a big zombie fan, but I mean, Dawn of the Dead and something we even watched on Super 8mm when I grew up. There was no VHS first even. And then the VHS came, then the DVD came and this kind of stuff. And I felt okay. So it's based on the video game. I went to the arcade, I played it, and I felt like, okay, so that is such basically the shooting zombies into pieces. So we should do the same in the film, but we need some story. And but we should do it definitely in kind of an overdrive, campy, gory way. So that was the
mission accomplished there.
Yeah, and then I changed the script a little. Like some stuff was in the script way smaller or shorter, like the battle in front of the house when we had the Matrix set up and the turntable where the camera moves around and the players were dead and the camera moves around like in the video game. Stuff like this was all not really in the script, but I felt like we need some real like out of control battle, because when you see real gamers, right, they're all in a way out of control when they're losing their shit on the thing, like shooting, like my sons both play Fortnite and stuff like this, and you cannot approach them when they in a tournament or something. They're completely focused. Like it's.
I've been known to shoo my wife away if something's getting a little intense in a video game.
Yeah.
So, okay, I find that interesting because this came out, 2003? Is that right?
Yeah, 2003.
So the bullet time stuff, was that because that was really big in movies at the time from The Matrix?
Yeah.
Is that...
Yeah. Okay. And we had this German team from Electrofilm, and they built like 200 like still cameras and had like a rig. In today's time, everything is way easier, right? So, but there, it was a real big setup, and it messed up, of course, the whole location, because I couldn't shoot anything else when they were building it. And so it took them 12 or 13 hours before we could do the first shot. And I was losing my shit on them because I said, look, when the sun goes up, they started at lunchtime. And then I thought that ready to roll at 9 o'clock in the evening. And then we can shoot that Matrix stuff the whole night. But it was 1 o'clock in the night and we still didn't shoot anything. And and I told them, like, look, guys, I mean, what's going on? So they said, oh, we're almost done. So then they were done. And the first shot was when the guy makes this salto, like the flip and throws the axe. And he had to get pulled back by the stunt people on a rope for it, and they pulled him back full on into the rig, like into the camera rig, and it flipped over. It was all on the ground in the mud, and I like, oh, they're like, okay, now we have to clean the lenses, whatever. And I yelled at them. I said, like, no, get it up, put it back up, and we just keep shooting. I don't care if some cameras in between maybe don't work. If you have 200 cameras and 10 are not working, the shot still should work, right? And then we shot really shot after shot after shot. But I was not a big fan of that rig, let's say it this way, you know. And
have you used the bullet time in any film since?
No, never did it yet. I did something similar on Alone in the Dark, where we follow a bullet, but it's a tracking shot, basically. It's not like this can we follow a bullet through an ice block and hitting a guy in the chest. So, yeah, but that was a different setup. The other setup, this turntable thing, we were the last film who used it. That was basically an elevated rig, a wood rig, around 10 meters long, and a 35 millimeter camera was rigged to it and spinned around with like 50 miles an hour. And you shot it in like super slow motion with like 200-300 frames. And then you had the people fighting on it. And it looked spectacular. I still love that rig, but it got disallowed because in another shot, a guy fell into the camera. And the camera like broke his shoulder, his arm, and everything. Of course, if a camera moves with 50 miles an hour, and a guy, whatever, kicked him in the chest, and he fell backwards into the racing camera. So they disallowed that whole thing. It was in Vancouver where, that thing was existing.
I can't imagine getting hit by a camera going 50 miles an hour.
No, I know, that's deadly. Like if he would got first with his head in, he would be of course dead. That was the point where I think then the stuntman union where I said like we're not doing this anymore, because you can also, even if it's very good under control, you still could slip or something. You know, I mean, on a platform, everything is possible. Even if you don't do a fight scene there, it's still a risk, and they felt the risk is too high. Yeah,
I have never heard of this before. That is a wild camera rig. Holy shit!
yeah.
I had to ask too about the video game insert. So this was early. I mean, you were, I guess, kind of a pioneer in the video game adaptations. Is that why did you put the clips of the game in?
I felt also like, why not? It was like this kind of like, okay. I felt in this film, everything goes. And I used them kind of like transition shots in a way. And I know that people flipped completely out on it and said like, how could he do this? And my answer was always, why not? Because I felt it looks cool. It was actually the idea of the editor. He was sitting there and feeling like, how I get from this scene to that scene? Would it be not cool to have some from the animation from the game in? And then he searched the game. He was in contact with Sega. They sent him everything in HD, in good quality, and then we cutted it in. So I don't mind. I mean, later in a lot of films, stuff between like kind of animation, comic, mixed with real stuff, it happened over and over again in the following years,
I guess in Ang Lee's Hulk movie he kept using the comic book panels throughout, but I mean, that was also interesting. So your editor came up with this idea, and you've been getting shit for it for the last 20 years now over the video game
exactly.
footage.
It was his fault. The fucking but I felt it was good, so it was a good idea, and so I went with it. And I mean, I like this kind of technical technology ideas in it. Like in the film, my second US film was Blackwoods, and there we used this car that was developed. I don't even know, was it for iRobot or something like this, but it was developed and built for a massive $150 million film. And after it was just standing around, and they rented it. And that was the car where you drive straight, but the car twists. So you basically have a car on a car. So there's a driver like on the bottom of the car driving straight forward, but the actor is in the top part of the car, and you can spin it as fast you want, and then the actor Patrick Muldoon, I remember he was like throwing up. He was so done because we did it on purpose. Also, so really, he basically has his car is slipping on ice and hitting a girl. So, and that was the scene. And then we let him turn and turn and turn and turn, and he felt really bad about it. But it was a spectacular shot. If people can watch Blackwoods, if they find it somewhere, I don't know where it is now, maybe Amazon somewhere, whatever. But because the girl, we built it also a fake candy glass window, and so she had to step in, also in a dangerous way, step in when the car turned to hit the glass with the face. For this, of course, we let it not turn so fast, and we delayed it always slow-mo, but still the car turned, and we told her, look, as soon your nose hits the glass, we pull you back. So the stunt guys had her on a rig too, and rigged her out of the shot. And it's an amazing shot if you see it now, because it's like you see Patrick Muldoon's face, really full of fear, looking out of the window, waiting for her face basically hitting the glass, and then it splinters, and she's dead.
You said this was in Blackwoods?
Blackwoods, yeah.
All right. I have not seen that, but I need to see this now. That sounds amazing. So basically, you put your actors in danger often. That's what you're saying.
So I'm banned from everything. No, I mean, it is. We, of course, you try to do things as safe as possible, but I mean, 20 years ago, I have to say, there was not this kind of panic of what it is now on film sets. Now if somebody has a rubber gun in his hand, everybody thinks about Alec Baldwin and runs in all direction. I mean, that is also a little overreacting to situations. And film is also adventure. You go in risk. And we had a lot, when I think about Postal, we had in Postal a lot of spectacular stunts. And things can happen in stunts. There's where my stunt guys are not getting paid like an extra, right? So, and in today's time, they would say, oh, he falls down after a gunshot. This is a stunt. And in 20 years ago, everyone would say, no, an actor is to be able to get shot and fall down to the ground himself without having a stunt double on set. In the case that something would happen, that is total bullshit. And in our films, like in Postal, we rigged the guy through a window in a house backwards. We had a guy going on the bike behind the truck, and then he gets shot and he flies. We pulled him, not we, but stunt guys, they pulled him backwards from the bike, driving in this direction, falling on the ground, with pads on his back, on the asphalt. There was no mat or something. So these are stunts, and I think they deserve then to get way more money, because it is a real risk. That situation is not easy, and it's hard, and it 100% hurt. But that is where these guys are trained for. So, and it's now to make everything, every actor gets now stunt adjustments because he hits his head opening a closet or something like that.
I'm so happy to hear you say that, because I'm a huge fan of stuntmen. We watch a lot of Canon films from the 80s. Oh, yeah. And the amount of stuntmen who eat shit in those movies is incredible, but it makes the movie feel real when you see somebody hitting the ground hard or doing a stunt over a car. It adds an intensity to it.
Totally. And I love practical things. I always liked prosthetics more as CGI. So, and blood, I want a script, I want a blood effect, whatever. And I'm not a big fan of fixing it all in CGI. And you on set, you don't have blanks, you don't have scripts. It's bullshit. And CGI also never looks so good as a real effect.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, hopefully it goes back to this. And because all this stuff are, of course, also price drivers. So it gets more and more expensive to make films based on all of this stuff. I mean, to make a bullet hole with a script costs you $20. But to actually put a CGI bullet hole in your pullover, that will cost you $500. And and if this adds up, I mean, if you have a film like my film Rampage or something where you shoot like 200 people, you're looking into 200,000-300,000 CGI only for bullets or bullet holes or muzzle flashes and stuff.
To your point, I can't stand the CG bullet holes or the CG muzzle flashes. They look like shit.
Yes.
It drives me, even in a movie with the budget of John Wick, it drives me crazy how bad it looks.
Yeah, because I think when you lift the gun, right, and they shoot, they never get the angle exactly right. And it always looks, the CGI starts at the end of the muzzle and not like inside the gun. And that is different when you shoot when you shoot a blank. It comes from inside of the gun. You see a movement of a shell flying out and all that stuff. It looks just more realistic. And
In House of the Dead, I don't remember the character's name anymore. Was she a cop? Some kind of a forest ranger? I don't know.
And Ellie, yeah, but I don't know what her film name anymore.
Her gun has the craziest muzzle flashes I've maybe ever seen in a movie. I don't know how much powder was in those, but it looked phenomenal.
I know. We shot everything with full loads, not like quarter loads, what they have now. And we had what is the name? The Desert Eagle.
Oh, that's right.
Like a 50-50 caliber revolver where you actually, if you don't have ear protection, if you would shoot real guns with it without ear protection, it's definitely your drum is gone. Like you have to go to the hospital. So, but because of blanks are a lot of times not so loud as the normal, like the real bullets. But,
really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're not so loud. But we had then secret, like, the ear protection was in the ear skin collar. So they had something in, because otherwise, I mean, the battle in front of the house, there were like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bullets shot in all directions. And it was too loud. But in Alone in the Dark, we had the same situation where I think I still hold the record for the most blanks in one setup. In Alone in the Dark, there is a fight in front of the mine with like machine guns against the monsters. The monsters were, of course, CGI, but the soldiers with the machine guns, with the 50 caliber things, that were all real. And I think we shot 10,000 bullets per take in real.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I will never forget that. And the stunt guy, the armorer, Rob Fournier, he said, like, that is the record for British Columbia. And I mean, look at what films are shot in British Columbia, tons, right? So, but it was because I liked it to do it real, because then you really had also, I think that soldiers fighting the monsters who were not there had also a better feeling for it, because it was total mayhem with all that guns and they had to reload in the shot and stuff like this. Let's say you don't do any of it and you say, oh, we do it all later in CGI. Now you have monsters, you have guns who don't shoot, and you think you get good acting out of it. I don't think so.
That's it. I haven't seen that movie yet, so now you have completely sold me. I have to see this scene alone.
That's
a lot of bullets. Two more questions about House of the Dead, and then I'll move on. Do you know the name Joe Bob Briggs? Have you ever heard of him? They call him the drive-in movie critic. He used to host a show called Monster Vision. He still does movie reviews now.
Oh, okay.
He came up with a rating system he called the 3 Bs. It was blood, breasts, and beasts. And if you hit those, he liked the movie. And that's basically what we were saying about House of the Dead. It just seemed like you were having fun with that because your boob quotient at the beginning of that movie was very high. You were getting a lot of naked girls in, and then it was just gunfire. So we had a blast with that.
Yeah, the rave. Yeah.
And then the second question I have is, looking back now, how do you feel about that period of time with all those video game movies you were making? And you got a lot of shit during that time too. Do you look back positively, negatively, learning experience? How do you view it?
No, I mean, definitely learning experience, but also overall positive, because I always dreamed to make films, and I was not like supported in a way, right? And like my father worked here at the chemical factory by Leverkusen, so there was no connection to the film industry in my world, how I grew up. But I loved films and wanted to do films, and uh, and then to be on a set with Christian Slater, or and making real films like 20 years later or 15 years later, when I started with short films, that I count as a big success. Yes, I didn't get the Oscar, I didn't get a very good reviews for these films, but they were shown everywhere. People know it around the world. They were running around the world everywhere, and I think I cannot seriously say that was a bad idea. And the same with, they have a long shelf life. When I still get accountings from Lionsgate or whatever, right? So they still sell DVDs, they still sell it to the streamers and whatever now with new businesses. And that makes me also happy that the films were not like completely out there and then totally forgotten. They had the normal life in the movie theaters, then they had the DVDs and still VHS at that point, and DVDs. And I feel a little, when you see about the streamers now, a lot of films disappear after a week and they will be never seen again. Basically, you have the feeling like if you disappear from Netflix, from the main frame, who knows how many people will watch a film who is after 2 months completely gone. So, and that is the thing. And I like it that these films had a physical DVD and a director's commentary and making offs. This kind of stuff I think is important to keep films interesting also for the audience. And all that films had this. And I think that is also a reason that they're still generating revenues 15, 16 years later, because people were talking about it and people were like still talking about it, right? So that I think makes me proud. And I have to say, of course, to do a film like In the Name of the King, like Dungeon Siege with Jason Statham, Burt Reynolds, Ray Liotta, that was this kind of like dreams come true. You're on set with Burt Reynolds and
That's wild.
And drink like a cappuccino with him and talk about like Deliverance. He even gave me the soundtrack from Deliverance. He bought it for me because I told him like I love that film. And then he went out, or his assistant or whatever, and bought me the record, and it's signed. It's still in my under my players here, so I still have a record player. And I think that is stuff you don't forget, and that films also made it, I think, possible that I made other films later.
Sure.
Yeah.
Have you found perception has changed for the movies over the years? Have people been watching them again with a different lens, or is people just still giving you crap about it?
I think that people over time get more milder to it, but I think also with the films who came after, they saw that some stuff I did was kind of avant-garde, right? It was a little ahead of the time, and they didn't took it serious. When I see now, God, what came out now, the animation film, the big success, Mario Brothers, right? So Super Mario. So when the new one came out and was a big success, everybody wrote about video games. That is the new big business, whatever. And then I was sitting there, wait a second, new? And but at that time, comic books were already big, and video game films not at all. They were like this kind of outsider product. Before my films, there were Street Fighter, Wing Commander. There were a few before me, but there were individual films, mostly B films, and they didn't get a lot of credit or money or stars. And I think I was definitely the first guy who had real film stars in this kind of films.
No, it's true. I mean, there was, Double Dragon and Mario Bros, but those were really shitty, boring movies.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
you know,
yeah, could be from Canon. Yeah, but I love the whole history of Canon. I watched the whole docu about Canon films.
Canon might be the greatest film company of all time. Yeah. I just love their shit so much.
I was sitting at Menachem Golan. The other Canon was Golan Globus, or whatever, these two guys, right?
Yeah, Golan and Globus, yep.
Yeah, and I was sitting there before I shot my first US film, what turned then into the film Sanctimony. And so I was in LA the first time in my life and tried to have a contact. And then I met Bob Daly, and I couldn't believe it. I said, Bob Daly, he's dead now, but he was the producer of like Platoon. And I like, the guy wants to meet you. Like a friend of mine said, how? Why? I said, like, it's completely crazy. Look at these credits, right? But I think it was in a time of his career where he also had no more money or something. So we went together to Menachem Golan, who was also in the ditch at that time. Like, it has to be like around 1999, 2000. So, and they were in a crisis.
Oh, yeah, they were done.
Yeah, totally, right? So, and he was sitting there. And then I thought that Bob Daly goes with me there, and I pitched to him my idea for my film, where the title was first A Millennium's End, but because we couldn't shoot it before 2000, we changed it in Sanctimony in the end because we didn't pull it off. So, but then Golan started totally not listening to me and started like talking about a film with Kathleen Turner he wants to do. And then he was talking about every single detail of that story. And after 20 minutes, I told to Bob Daly, I didn't told him like, I'm here that he should put money in my film or whatever, should listen to my story and can maybe jump on board as a distributor or whatever, right? So, and Bob Daly said, no, I said it, but it looks like it didn't stick. So he thought I'm a financer from Germany, and he pitched that in every detail. So it was one of the strangest meetings of my life. And after an hour, we walked out. I told to Bob Daly, I said, "What is wrong with you?" I said, "Like, what are we doing here? And why we did need even Menachem Golan if you are so a big shot in Hollywood, right?" So and yeah, but it never. He and Golan and they all had nothing to do in the end with the film. But that is typical Hollywood. You know, everybody's hustling around. And a lot of people are not what you think they are, only because you read the Hollywood Reporter or something. It's different when you actually meeting people. And I was lucky because at that point there was a lot of German money in the market. So everybody who came from Germany, they thought, oh, another rich money bag. We take it away from him, and they were all like meeting me, but then they were shocked that I actually wanted to do my own films and only want their distribution, and and like not really giving my money for other people. Films. So
I see.
Yeah. So they were not so enthusiastic after this anymore.
There's been a lot said about how you funded these movies I've heard about tax loopholes or something.
No.
How exactly were you getting so much money for these?
Yeah, I think that I have to explain it. I think here in this show for real how it was, because I totally agree with you. People writing since 10, 15 years, the total bullshit about that kind of...
I've seen so many different explanations, and I still have no idea.
I have Nazi gold, unfortunately not. But
I did not read that one.
That is the reason I put that in post. In post when I'm sitting in little Germany and I tell Vern Troyer when I give him gold teeth, I said I have all the Nazi gold. I can pay everything. So and I made fun out of it about that completely ridiculous stuff. And no, it was 1997, 1996. You could start investing in films in Germany, but like in funds, film funds, so financial institutions, whatever they did, funds. And you invest your money. Let's say you're a dentist, you make $200,000 a year. So now, normally you pay 100,000 taxes. So you put the 200,000 in this film fund, you pay zero taxes, right? But also you don't have any money left because it's all in the film fund. And of course, and that is what they always wrote, is that it's a tax scheme that you have to lose the money, or you want to lose the money, or Boll on purpose made flop after flop or something like this. But the reality is, you want to lose that money only 1 year, like when you invest it, you want the tax loss. You don't want to pay taxes, so you invest it. But of course, the years after, you hope for revenues.
Sure.
All the investors flipped completely out, but with films they tanked, or funds they tanked, and they sued them, and they lost their shit. So it's like nobody wanted to lose effective money investing in films or film funds. So what happened was then all the money went to Hollywood. So the German government did proper regulations in that German people need to benefit from it, that you have to spend the money in Germany or for German crew or whatever. So now it started with stupid German money. It was always the headlines when you Google it, stupid German money, because they went to Hollywood. They gave Avi Lerner, New Image, Brad Crivoy, all that people got tons of money from German funds, made their films, took a lot of fees out. And then the revenues felt mostly flat, like it was mostly a disaster. And the investors made 20% back, 30% back, but not 100, 200% back. And I wanted to go into that business. I felt like I'm a filmmaker myself. The other guys are all just financial advisors collecting money, but they cannot make films. I can make films. And then I tried to get, for 2 years, people, they invest or collect money for me, and it never worked. And like big banks, Amro Bank, like they said, oh, here's a term sheet. You go to Hollywood, you get 100 million from us if you fulfill this, if you get this stars or whatever. Like, so I was hustling around, but they never paid. They always said, no, it's not valid, whatever. So I never got the money. So then I got one guy who said, look, I can raise you not 100 million bucks, but I can raise you 3 million bucks. You give me 20%, like finder's fee. And so we're basically adding it to the budget. So let's say 3.6 million, right? And he wanted 600, like an enormous amount of money. But you feel like, before I don't make any film, let's do it, right? So that is how I started with Sanctimony, with the smaller films, Blackwoods, Heart of America. They were all films in this $3, $4, $5, $6 million total budget, you know. So, and this, I was lucky because I had almost no money and the films were cheap. So they recouped more money back percentage-wise as the big $100 million they gave away to Hollywood. So my performance was extremely good. And then like I paid like on the first film, I think 55% back within 12 months. So people got like basically the 50% tax refund, right? And then they got 55% cash back. So they felt like, boops, the other guys paid me 3% back after a year. So maybe we should do more. We should look into that Boll guy. So, and that is why I growed and got more money, and more of this money investment advisors called and said, you have more of this, there was a prospectus, like kind of like a high-end colorful prospectus, 40 pages, right? And they said like, send us some prospects. We want to talk with our clients about it. And then I got more and more people requesting that prospectus and the contracts. And then I raised 30 million bucks. So it was like out of the blue, it was like an invasion of money. I think that was then 2002, where I started 2000 or 1999. And then 2002, it kind of exploded, right? So where then the people said, Boll is actually returning the money and is actually finishing the films. We should collect more money for him. And that is why I had the money for House of the Dead. Because, you know, when Mark Altman came with the script and the Sega thing, 1 year before, I could never do it. I would just not have the money, right? So, but there I saw, oh, the money is actually coming in, they're actually investing now. And I need bigger films now. I need like more budget, basically. I need to spend more money. And House of the Dead came at the right time. And besides the fact that, you know, a lot of people like, oh, I did $11 million box office. But it's not a flop if you have a film for under 10 million. and you make $11 million box office only in US, and then you have 50 other countries taking it out, and you make DVD after and TV revenue. So the film was actually financially a full-on super success.
Well, they made a sequel, so clearly it made some money.
Not me. I didn't read the sequel, but
I think people also I don't think people understood how big DVD was at the time, how much money that made.
It made so much money. And I remember also like Redbox, like in the supermarkets, like the machine, right? When they put an order in, you sold like 50,000 DVDs. Like they ordered like 40,000, 50,000 DVDs. Of course, they didn't pay the full price, but you still made like $500,000 or $1 million only on a Redbox order. So, and that were the golden days for this. But then, of course, you also get feedback, right? So I got the feedback. You need to do more of that video game-based films. Because the investors felt, that is why I acquired actively then licenses like Alone in the Dark, Blood Rain, Dungeon Siege, because they told me we don't know if you now want to do another school shooting drama, if the investors would get flaky again, if they would say, no, then forget it. But as soon as I said, I have Alone in the Dark, I do the video game from Atari, we got even more money. So that was the reason. It's this kind of like, I'm not a subsidized filmmaker. A lot of German filmmakers, they just get state subsidies and TV deals. And I was always out of that system. They hated me in Germany. So, but here I was and had a chance to get big money for big movies. And of course, I drove it as long as it went. And then 2005, after Dungeon Siege and Far Cry were basically financed, the government stopped the whole thing. Like they said, we don't want any more tax write-offs for films, period. So, and the whole business collapsed, like it was over. So, and all the other funds dissolved and they're gone because there was no more money to make. But of course, I as a filmmaker stayed, and I think I did the clever thing in making my own sales, like building a sales agency myself, so that we go to the markets, we sell the films ourselves, we get all the revenues, and that brought cash flow in to continue with Rampage and this kind of smaller films, but there was still enough money to make this kind of films, and especially also in the DVD for the DVD market. And one of the reasons 2016 where I felt like I'm over, I'm done, was DVD was dead, Blockbuster was gone, right? You couldn't really make money on DVD anymore. It was like 10 cents from what it was before, but the streamers were not right there. It was like, okay, how I want to recoup a film now? I mean, to just think a theatrical release will recoup me the money is impossible. It's just like an illusion. So I felt like financially, it doesn't make sense to make any more films. That is why 2016, I felt it's over, forget it, I'm out of the business. And the only reason I'm coming back now, basically, or I wanted to come back, are two things. I love making films. I always wanted to make films. I'm unhappy if I don't make films. But at the same time, now there are markets again. There are a lot of streamers, a lot of competition in it, and you can get money out of them. And they can compete with the DVD revenues from the old days.
So, okay, so the explanation is Nazi gold is how you did it.
That was the short form. But, I was just lying about. No, but it's of course it. You know why it was over the years sometimes pissing me off with this kind of. I on purposely made shit films who tank to fulfill like a tax write-off scheme in Germany. That is just like completely wrong. And of course, I also didn't really had so many horrible flops as they want to say, I mean, I can show you in the last 10 years, I would say 400 big Hollywood films who did $10 million box office, who made nothing, like 1 million, 2 million with big superstars and $100 million budgets. over and over. So they should be not like acting like my films performed so bad. And especially genre in general makes a lot of money in DVD.
Sure.
I want to see the DVD revenues of Wim Wenders. Whatever, or like this kind of art house films you have everywhere and winning the Golden Palm or whatever, right? But let's look effectively how many DVDs they selling and how many DVDs Rampage sold. So and there is a huge difference between genres. I think genre films are basically the real backbone of the whole film industry.
Totally agree. I think horror movies, the return per dollar put in has got to be crazy compared to these big budget movies.
Totally. I mean, you see that Blumhouse, right? So, I mean, he gets richer and richer. Yeah, and but it's so clever. But he has that big advantage. He has the big distribution behind. Like Universal can, like, if they think something works, they spend 50 million in advertising, and then it's everywhere. If they feel it doesn't really work, how much they lose? 10 million. They get that easy back from the streamers alone.
Yeah.
So it's
yeah. I mean, he makes those $2 to $5 million movies, and it's like,
yes,
he only needs one of those to hit.
Exactly. And the rest, they still make money selling it to the streamers because it's a Blumhouse production. And that is I felt he's like the follower from M. Night Shyamalan. No, in the beginning, I think Shyamalan, he did like this surprising kind of twisted horror films, and he stayed to a budget, and then he got bigger and bigger, and then he lost more and more budget, basically. With like he turned into an A-list filmer, but the film's not. That's what I personally like feel. And Blumhouse, I think he sticks to the plan. In making this kind of specific genre, and horror is the most profitable genre, as you said. It's not really in horror what works and what doesn't work based on money.
No, I totally agree. I think horror is probably what I watch the most of, just because I feel like more chances are taken in the films. They're smaller budgets, so and I think horror films usually work better when you have no-name actors. If there's a bunch of big-name actors in it, just as a viewer, I assume that guy's going to live a long time into the movie because he's got a big name. Whereas if it's a bunch of no-names, anybody can die at any point, and I feel like it adds a kind of an intensity to it. So you can make those movies for nothing.
Yeah.
And
like
get your money back
like
pretty easy.
Romero, right? Even The Purge or something, this kind of films, you also didn't really know anybody. And then, in like John Carpenter always had one or two name actors in,
right?
But then it happened exactly what you said. That Snake Plissken will not die. So you cannot really surprise the people. But they were not really horror. They were a little different. They were like action sci-fi horror, most of the Carpenter films. They were not really, I would say, like a Halloween was, or these typical slasher films, Mother's Day, Man Eater, all that stuff. They had nobody in, Maniac, and nobody gives a shit, because I grew up with all that horror films. I faked my ID to get earlier in, and then I watched really all that films when they were like, I remember Friday the 13th Part 1. I was sitting there and was scared shitless. It was all about like who gets killed how, but you were still like scared of it, and I loved that period. So I personally like horror films a lot.
Oh yeah, like I said, Blood, Breasts, and Beasts. You hit me with those, I'm probably going to be pretty happy. I wanted to ask, you mentioned that some of these actors, you have worked with some big name actors. Who was just a total pain in the ass, and who did you really like to work with?
They were all assholes, forget them all. No, I did 2 films with Ray Liotta. And like in the Name of the King and Suddenly, in Suddenly he played a cop and was so totally different character. Like because he did something he is used to do, and he was calm, easygoing, super humor, everything. on In the Name of the King, like sci-fi film, he had the wig on, do sword fighting. You felt he's uncomfortable. He doesn't want it, so he got a little miserable, and it was not so easy to keep the positive vibes up. Let's say it this way, because I had with Jason Statham and Claire Fulani a very good relationship during the shoot, and they were both, I mean, they're both British, right? So they had very dry humor, and I like to tease actors, right? So, for example, when Claire Fulani did a scene, and she looked at me after, and then I said, like, I want my money back. Like, because she's so shitty, I want to replace her. And she was laughing at her. So because she knows, she gets from me never really now a straight answer, like, that was so great or something. I'm just not tired to do this. And Statham has the same dry humor, So, and Ray Liotta was, I think, a little thrown off. But suddenly was later, and there I didn't have any problem with him, It was hard with Michael Madsen in Blood Rain in Romania, but Romania was you can say, all 3 Blood Rain films I did were every single time was an absolute disaster. Like, it was a total shit show because
really?
Because Romania was so hot, the food was so bad, the weather was shit. It was all like horrible. The hotels we were in were the last shitholes on the countryside. And then it was so like tough also to shoot, right? And we had the core of people like Christina Loken, Michelle Rodriguez, Matt Davis, and Michael Madsen. They were the whole shoot there, right? So, and we were like traveling around the country, and Madsen was acting like a dick to most of the people, right? And was a little drunk, and I personally like him, and everybody else was so mad with him because he's changing the scene, he's changing the lines, he gives a shit, he's not waiting for the other guy saying the lines. So it's like, if everybody would act like this at that time, you're dead. You cannot like, and I was lucky that the other actors in a way adjusted to it, but they also told me, like, I'm not doing this. Ben Kingsley said he's not shooting with Michael Madsen the scene, like, he knows him from a different film species. And so we had to double him. From the back, it's Michael Madsen, and then from the back, it's Ben Kingsley, but it's a stunt person. And,
what a pain in the ass.
Yeah, and then, but I understand Ben Kingsley too, right? He had a sword, and he felt, I'm not doing a sword fighting with that guy. He will just stab me because he has no control over what he's doing. And so that was, for me, a very tough experience. But there was so much during the shoot, like, where we had, like, whatever, the food stands outside and it's pissing rain, like the catering, right? And there was no fans, nothing, no tent, nothing. So I go there and tell the caterers, like, what, are you insane? Like, what the fuck? I said, like, it's all water now getting into your pig's roast. Yeah. And they're like, well, whatever. And everybody can eat the last crap. And there was so much shit going on. I will never forget stuff. Like, Matthias Neumann, my DP, we were standing on a field that was totally muddy. We did a war scene, and it was hot. Everything was pissed off. And he's like, I think across the street is actually my suitcase standing. And I like, why there should be a suitcase? We're in a hotel. We checked in yesterday. So why your suitcase should be standing on the sidewalk? So we walked over, and it was a suitcase. For whatever fucking reason we can. Till today, when we both tell us the story, I've still worked with Matthias. We were like, that means the driver had to take the suitcase out of the hotel room in his car to dump it on the sidewalk. So, but why? Why? And you're standing there, and I had that in Romania a lot, where you were laying in the bed at night and like, why? What is happening here? Where you really get completely confused. But it was also, of course, in retrospective, this kind of films, you talk about it. Like later when we are sitting together and discussing, or when I now talk with you, right? So it's like this kind of, the catastrophic shoots were always the most funny ones in retrospective, because you go through this total absurd situation again. Yeah, and we had in Blood Rain 2, we shot in the Wild West city by Vancouver, and we had a gas tank exploding through the roof of the barn, and then they fell down in the other gas tanks, and we had to run. And so we were running up the hill. We called the fire trucks. Nobody got hurt, but when the fire truck came and we said, okay, look, here's the deal. There are 15 to 20 of these gas tanks for the heaters and stuff. It was in winter outside. And so the fire department said, no, we're not going down there. So we were all standing on a hill, looking one tank after the other exploding, and the city burned down, right? The building after building, all the wood houses just burned down. And
oh my God.
Yeah. And then I had to change, of course, the script, because I had to explain why now the railway station doesn't exist anymore the next day. And, okay, we filmed it, we did it all. It was a huge insurance case, of course. But I will never forget that is shit you never forget, right? So, and yeah. So
the worst experiences on film sets make for the best stories.
Yeah, the best for the making of stories. Like when
yeah. That's hilarious. I wanted to ask, Clint Howard is a legend around here. We see him in so many movies. How is he to work with?
Super. I love Clint. I emailed him last week. He was in a lot of my films, like Michael Paré. I love him, So I would work with these guys anytime, because we like us on as humans, and they are always, Clint is always prepared here, like Michael Paré also. These are actors, they're always right there. Kristanna Loken is super to work with too, super disciplined, prepared. And most of the actors I work with, I never had really a fight or a real problem with. I mean, that we don't really like each other. Luke Perry, super nice guy. He's dead now too bad. But I shot this Final Storm with him. He was a pleasure to work with. Super nice. Claire Fulani, Lydia Zubieski. I mean, they were really, or Ron Perlman, that are really fun to work with, right? So I would work with them any day again. And Clint is just, I mean, because how he looks, right? So he gets special parts always, the nutty professor, whatever. But I think also in my film Heart of America, he played a father from a guy who is basically where you think the guy could run amok, but he's very, very good at this as a normal drama role. I think his range is way bigger as maybe the parts he gets. Yeah,
that's interesting. I mean, you make a great point. He's always some goofball in a horror movie who gets killed 20 minutes in. You never really get to see his range. I guess maybe in Apollo 13 you get to see him act a bit more.
Of course, his brother gives him jobs too, right? But I think he deserves his own jobs, and he is a really good actor, and he should get more chances to really show what he can do. Because look, he comes from an acting family. They all do nothing. He grew up as a child actor, so he has all the skills and the routine to deliver whatever the role is asking for.
All right, well, let's get him some more roles. I couldn't agree more. I think Clint Howard is amazing.
Yeah,
and I hadn't really thought of it that way until you mentioned it. But he really doesn't get to show much range. All right. Yeah. I also wanted to ask. I had a couple questions here. People wanted me to ask you. But one was, everybody keeps mentioning you beating the shit out of those reporters. How much of that was because you got to beat the shit out of your critics, and how much is because that got your name in the news a lot? That was a hell of a marketing ploy, if nothing else.
Yeah, but that was before YouTube, or in a way. But
I heard about it when it was happening, and I hadn't even seen any of your movies, and I knew your name.
Yeah.
Because you were beating the crap out of those guys.
I know. I mean, I did it really because I was very upset about the reviews of Blood Rain and so on. And I felt like, look, guys, it doesn't even look that you watch the films. You just write the review, and I was mad, and then I said, who wants to box me? Who wants to go in the ring with me to physically destroy me? Because a lot of videos were out at that point too. I think YouTube was out already, but where they said like, I want to kill you over whatever. And I said, okay, then let's make a proper fight, but I want actually reviewers and not like crazy people. So, and they applied, they met in Vancouver, we did the fights. And I think it was a good stunt. It was a good evening. We had over 1,000 paying people around the ring, and you're right. I mean, it brought a lot of attention, but also, I mean, what I had to fight over the years is, of course, the video game stuff. Or he says "fuck you, Hollywood," or he's fighting the critics. That I'm like uncontrollable. I think that is the people think that I'm not a team player or whatever, I do only what I want. It's not true. I mean, when people are with me on a set shooting a film, it's completely not crazy at all. It's straight to the case, doing the film on time in budget. And that is, everybody knows it who worked with me, but I think in the public eye, and that maybe damaged me of not getting director jobs from studios or whatever, because they just saw the headlines and they felt like, we don't know, that guy could be a big problem for us. And then boom, I never got shooting an episode of The Mandalorian, whatever. No, but it's
I'm glad.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I'm glad you mentioned that. You definitely have a reputation, because when I mentioned on my Patreon that I was going to be talking to you, a lot of people were like, oh, watch out, that guy's crazy or whatever. And a bunch of people were like, no, I've actually talked to him and he's really nice. So that, while I find it hilarious that you beat those guys up, it definitely did give you a reputation that maybe wasn't deserved.
Yeah, I mean, but I know some directors that said, I wish I did the same. I hate them so much, so I mean, I think for a lot of people, it was kind of a wish coming true. But I felt also it's deeper as this, right? So I talked with all the four people who were in Vancouver. Jeff Schneider was with Variety, Chris Alexander from Fangoria, and they all have a totally different opinion now from me. They were on set also. They saw that it's not like a crazy cult shooting a film, that it's completely professional crew doing all of this. And I think they felt also that they should give every single film a new chance. I think that is a big mistake from a lot of directors. By the way, you see that now at the Cannes Film Festival, what happens right now. Like if you're Wes Anderson, you are automatically in Cannes in the competition, no matter what you shoot, even if it's crap. So, and that is the thing, what I think it's unfair. And I think it's also like this kind of, this self-fulfilling prophecy, right? It's all this, you stay in your cocoon, you get the money from the mini major, then you get the Oscar nomination, or you get to the Cannes Film Festival. It's all planned out. That is the reason also they're getting always these big actors playing for them, because they all know, I go in Cannes, the red carpet, And I think that makes a lot of independent filmmaking harder. And if reviewers would see this more, they could write it more, and they could give real independent films a real chance and gives them a little more room, because a few things, if you ever watch my film Darfur about the genocide there in Sudan, that film is not 1% less impactful as Hotel Rwanda. It's the same quality, but it didn't get any attention. So, and that is the thing. Even Terry George, the director from Hotel Rwanda, he watched it. He was completely blown away, right? So, but it didn't get this full. The system was not behind it. So you're not.
Do you think some of that is budget? Some of that system? How much of that do you think is people can't get past your name?
Yeah, I think there's a mix between people don't want to get past my name, and it's because you don't have the major or mini major or the Oscar campaign behind you pushing something forward. And that is too bad, And of course, as film lovers, who we are all film lovers and we watch everything, and I think you would agree that a lot of the big stars are playing a lot of crap. Where you watch their films and you think, if would Ryan Reynolds put his weight behind something real, it could be an important film having a worldwide discussion about a subject. Like
I totally agree. We could talk for another hour if we started ranting about Hollywood. I think they're so lost.
It is what I mean. It's like I don't think the actors always have a good taste what films they actually should do, right? So, and just plainly because of my view as a film viewer, like watching films, right? And I feel some films, they were so strong, but because of the B cast, not only my films, but other films too I watch, where they don't get the attention they should, because the subject matter is so well told from the director and the story is so well told, but they don't get the attention. They don't get the Oscar nominations or whatsoever, based on the cast. And the A-list cast always gets the biggest attention, even for movies that are completely unimportant. They're just eye candy and they have nothing to say. It's I think a big mistake to mix these two things up. And because of the 80s and 90s are over, and in whatever, the early Oliver Stone, I think did very important films about American history and world history, but there, Born on 4th of July, he got Tom Cruise doing it. And so that is why everybody paid attention to it. What happened to the veterans coming home crippled, and nobody gives a shit about it. Besides, you get like whatever the whatever in Germany we have the Iron Cross. I don't. In you have the Purple Heart.
Purple Heart.
Yeah, but Purple then you're at home and like, goodbye, fuck off. So, and that is the thing. And I think in today's times, Tom Cruise is not doing it anymore. He's doing Top Gun, great film, but it's a popcorn cinema film. It has no, let's say, real thing. And a lot of the actors could do so much more with the value they have, but they work with the same producers, the same directors over and over again, and repeating what they're doing. And that makes me sad, So because of important things about a Darfur film, for example, what would blow the people away if one of my American journalists there would be George Clooney. The film would have had a totally different reception.
Sure.
And so not about the other actors. They were all great. Edward Furlong, Billy Zane, they were all great in the film, but they were not on that level to move a film to this kind of, we cannot overlook it. That is actually maybe one of the best films of the year. So that is what I mean. So I hope that actors are more open in the future to work also with newcomer directors, with different directors, and they shouldn't do always what the management wants from them.
I totally agree, and I find it interesting hearing you talk about this, from popcorn movies to more meaningful movies. Now that you're coming back into the industry, is that what you're going for, or more dramatic kinds of movies?
Yeah, I mean, I did First Shift in New York, now a police drama, what plays in one day. It has like episodically things because it's all happening in one shift, right? So you have like various little stories going on, and there is action and violence, but it's also sad and funny. It's mixed up. I have another film I want to do in South Africa, against like the backdrop of really political corruption in South Africa, but it's an action film. It's more a genre film. So it doesn't mean I don't want to do genre films, but I think there are also genre films like Assault on Wall Street. They have more in it as a shootout or a coup or something. And I'm interested always in things that are a little combination out of this kind of social commentary about something what's happening in a country or in a political system, and at the same time this kind of still driven story to be entertaining. That was for me always the most important thing. I just don't get bored when I watch something. And
that's my number one rule with movies. As long as I'm not bored,
yes,
I'm happy.
yes, and a lot of times I get bored in the last 10 years, and I get also bored of more and more science fiction or over the top Fast and the Furious car chases, right? So I'm getting bored of it. It's not.
I don't know how the Marvel movies can have so much action and be so goddamn boring nowadays.
Yes, because you know how they do it. It's all CGI. Nobody, like in the first, whatever, take Fast and Furious, the first films, the first two were believable kind of films. And then they got more and more money and it got more and more bullshit. And now they're falling from a roof on the hood of a car, but they're humans and not Superman. And they have nothing. And that is the thing what I don't go this, that is the thing where for me, the superhero films or whatever ending there where it's total bullshit, where it's just impossible to do. Same with James Bond. The old James Bond stuff was basically doable for a top agent. I mean, totally over the top, but everything he did, James Bond, it's still possible in a way. Yeah. So if he's really lucky, he would get out of his life. But then you have the last 4 or 5 James Bonds, and Daniel Craig is a good actor, but it doesn't make any sense anymore. It's just like totally over the top, and nobody would survive shit like this. And it's just like, and then I'm off. Then for me, it's then like, you know what? I'm not really interested because you don't play by the rules. That is, as a human being.
You're speaking my language. You are speaking my language. I feel like if you're going to do, if you're going to have, say, one thing in your film that is fantastical, I feel like everything else has to be grounded. Otherwise, it doesn't feel real.
Yes.
Like James Bond survives way too... we watched John Wick 4 a couple weeks ago, and while there's fun stuff in it, the shit that man survives is so unbelievable that I'm just numb to it by the end. It doesn't mean anything to me.
Yes. That is, for example, I still remember the car chase in Ronin, right? So, because there it's like done. They drove it, so, and that is the thing. And that is why it's forever, whoever watched it, right, felt like, oh, fuck it. Yeah, so what is happening here? It's happening actually for real. But that is how stories should be told, and not like this kind of, that it's totally absurd and nobody, everybody survives everything, and look at all that Avengers crap and Thor and Conan, whatever, like they throwing each other through a planet, through a building, through whatever. Why? Why? The audience now knows, okay, he will just survive it. Even in Guardians of the Galaxy, I watched it last week. I like Guardians of the Galaxy because it has humor in it, right? It has good characters. But also, now in the third part, it was also already too much, right? It's this kind of like endless fighting, but the end result is they're escaping or they're flying away, right? So, and it's, if the threat is not there that somebody's actually dead, or you can break somebody's neck and he's finally really dead. So it's like, then I'm not interested. And I don't know what is the Hollywood idea behind all of this. Also, that every film now has to be 2 hours and 40 minutes long.
Yes, you preach. Hour and a half and get me the hell out of here.
Yeah, 100 minutes. But then they all started it. Even James Bond is 2.5 hours long. I don't know where that jump came that they now think. I mean, let's say I'm a studio head. So now a studio head sits and says, if we do 100 minutes James Bond, people think we cheaped out and nobody watches the film. The opposite is true. You can do more screenings per day and people will like it more because nobody wants to sit 3 hours in a movie theater.
Yeah.
So
it has to be a phenomenal movie to hold my interest for that long.
Yes, whatever, Dances with Wolves or Titanic, you had one story, there will be no like second part of it, and you can have an epic tale for a while. Even I think Titanic was still 45 minutes too long. But but this kind of franchise films, they don't need this. They could save $100 million in production costs per movie to just cut the script to 100 pages and call it a day. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
know.
No,
it drives me crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know. All of a sudden, I kind of want you to be running a studio. You could
I
start
know.
making these big decisions.
I'm ready to do it. Ted Sarandos has to give me the key for Netflix or whatever. No.
Need to get Kevin Feige out of
always
there.
looking for new guys, right? So yeah, very good.
All right, 2 more questions. I'll get you out of here.
Okay.
We're running a little long. I apologize for that. I know you got into the restaurant business. Were you able to survive COVID? I know the attrition rate of restaurants through COVID was horrible.
So we closed too. I mean, first we had to close because of the shutdown, but I was always like not on good terms with my landlord. And so when we did the shutdown, we wrapped it all up. So we basically sold everything we had, and the restaurant closed. We also then relocated from Vancouver to Germany because we felt we want to go to Europe for a while. And I mean, wherever you were at COVID, it was for 1.5 years, 2 years, horrible. So, and now I want to go back to America to make more films.
Well, that was my final question. You're coming back into the industry, which you kind of went out in a blaze of glory. I saw some videos you posted. You seemed less than thrilled. Is it just your love of film that made you come back?
Yeah, I really like making films. Like the other stuff is the necessary evil, like to raise financing or whatever, and and getting a film into the market and all that stuff. But I like being on set and shoot films and like working with the actors. That is always my favorite part. Now we're in editing of the New York film, and it's this. Then you have to calm down, and now it's like so slow. Like moving along and changing this, changing that, looking into this. I like more being like in action, basically, being on set.
And how are you adapting to the new world financing your movies now? Because things have changed so much in the last 10, 20 years. It's crazy.
I mean, finding co-producers, for example, also people or companies investing post-production facilities, equipment, so it's a puzzle now, right? So then maybe some pre-sales where you pre-sell a film to a distributor. I invest my own money, I don't need like the big Ferrari living. So I'm willing to invest my own money in films I'm doing to say, okay, look, that is what I have fun, and I want that things get done, that the story gets told. Ultimately, you try to get a deal with a streamer or something before to get some money. I think we sold 20 of my films to Netflix, but they were all done already. They were all shot, and then you make a deal, you get some money. But I hope also that Netflix, for example, gives me at one point the money to do a film. To pay the whole thing. So we pitch various things, and I'm working now on getting actors for 1 or 2 projects who would trigger financing.
Okay.
So where it's way easier to sell something if the people know who plays the lead. So we developed a very good script for Wesley Snipes because I think the world needs him to come back as an action star. And
100%.
And I hope I get him. If he listens to this, I don't hope his agent is shielding him or whatever, But I think the people would like to see him again. And he's not too old, so he's fit. And I would be happy.
He looks the same.
Yes,
it's amazing. I don't know what he's doing.
Yeah. But that is the thing. I really hope. In the next 4 weeks, I can contact the agent and say, look, he should look into that script, and we're willing to do changes for the script too. And it will be good. It's him against the mob, so it will be a good film if we can do it. Yeah.
Well, I'm excited for that. What the hell? I think my monitor just turned off.
I see you still, so yeah.
Yeah, I think my monitor just died. Oh, okay. Turn it back on. Sorry about that. I don't know what the hell just happened. It's very professional here, in case you can't tell. Stay on the line. We'll say our goodbyes in a second here, but I wanted to thank you for coming on, and I think you probably changed a lot of people's perspectives on you through this. It's been very enlightening.
Thanks so much. Yeah, anytime I come back, and let's stay in touch, and then let's see in what direction everything is going.